Johannes, I wanted to start talking a little bit about the kind of what's developing in supply chain. And we seem to have gone from one disruption to the next. We started with the trade war. We quickly moved into the pandemic, which I wouldn't say we're out of, but you know, we're perhaps out of the worst stage. But as soon as we move out of that, we moved into this supply chain shortages. We seem to be in this position where supply chains are constantly disrupted. Are you able to redesign supply chains to cope with that disruption? And what does that mean for KATEK's strategy?
Yeah. Maybe let me start with a very general remark, because you are right. I mean, we have been facing that global pandemic. We have been facing the supply chain crisis, and now we're even facing a war on European mainland. And every single one of them would have been among the worst cases for strategic thinking scenarios just 3 years ago, probably. And so it is really been crazy times, but nevertheless, and that's kind of the where I kind of go two ways as a European, as a human. It's very bad times, but as KATEK management, I have to say we're really coping with it very well. And even when that, to answer your question more precisely, when that started, the supply chain, there were even supply chain colleagues coming to me, and they said, well, I mean, in a way it is good for us because it has reached a newspaper first page. And so they said, I mean, we're in this game for 10, 15 years. And now for the first time, everyone is seeing that. So, I mean, in a way, my colleagues were not surprised. And they said, I mean, it's becoming more urgent, but in a way, it has been their game ever since, securing supply lines, being very close with the suppliers, building up personal relationships, having better contact data, building up second sources and all that. And so in the end, I mean, obviously our main strategy remains just to move forward on that path of profitable growth. And so this is just something we have to cope with and bear with. But my impression is that KATEK is coping that really well, and we've been I mean, it's hard to do a hard comparison, but my impression is we're coping with this better than the competition, because we're able to really secure our supply side quite well. And we've been growing, and we've been gaining market share in the last 2 years, when competitors put down their forecasts and everything, and we've been able to
putting yours up
quite well. I mean, we could have done more, obviously. We could have. We always saying, Rainer and myself are saying, we could have done 10% more if we would have obtained all the parts and pieces, and the organization could have shown what it's capable of. But I mean.
But against the market, it's a great performance. And I think you make a really important point there, Johannes. I think what's interesting is it does connect with what you've always talked about as your strategy of getting to that critical size where you do have influence both on the customer side, on the supply side as well. But also one of the huge challenges of this current supply chain crisis is the absorption of cash. It just sucks cash out of the business because inventory is growing. So does it feel like those elements of your strategy to grow and to be so well funded have really paid dividends during the crisis?
Well, short answer, yes. But I mean, it is obviously also that we have not done the IPO to use the cash for inventory. No. But I mean, certainly it has been a very sound base for everything. Yeah. I mean, if you had the chance to look at the numbers, you see that we've been really we had to ease our working capital regime, and that has been kind of let it happen on purpose. Kind of theme, because I mean, obviously as a CFO, I don't like that, but we used the cash, and we had the cash, and we used the cash to by ability to deliver, by customer satisfaction, and yeah, I mean, and obviously we have to regain all that and drive inventories down once the crisis is going to be easing off, which I still believe is going to happen.
Yeah. Do you have any visibility on time frame on that, or you're just like going quarter by quarter and hoping for the best?
Well, I mean, I just don't think that there's going to be one time frame. We think that this is going to be easing off kind of category per category, and we see categories that are moving in a good direction, and others, I mean, yeah, my supply chain colleagues have escalation calls still every day, every week.
Yeah, of course.
So this is kind of going to be a kind of gradual moving process there.
Yeah, and it's a balancing, isn't it? It's a rebalancing after a massive disruption. So it takes the waves that some time to settle, and that will take some time.
And it's going to be an interesting thing to see. I mean, I believe you have been talking to Rainer in much more detail about the outlook and our personal perception when this is going to be easing off. And Rainer has been proposing what he told, that kind of the souffle paradigm. Once things are easing off, then kind of this inflated, or at some points inflated need is going to
it's going to have to collapse. Yeah.
The hysteria is going to be going out of it.
Yeah, and that has to happen because there's a lot of double ordering. There's a lot of excessive stock being retained because of fear. So, you know, as we move from that just in time to just in case, we've swung the pendulum too far, and we need to need to let it settle somewhere in the middle, and that will improve things. Johannes, I wanted to just switch gear a little bit and talk a bit about the kind of long-term objectives in supply chain and in the business, in terms of how that, not just how the business is perceived, but how the business exists as a citizen within the industry and a citizen within Europe. And talk a bit about ESG. We're seeing a lot of activity in that area. We've got the German Supply Chain Act coming through in the next 12 months. I think your first sustainability report is coming out. Talk to me a little bit about how you and KATEK see that whole ESG picture, and how important it is to kind of your plans to be part of this new frontier of EMS.
Happy to do so. And maybe again, let me start with a more general sense. I mean, KATEK is based in the German Mittelstand, and Mittelstand has been always doing business in a sustainable way, being corporate citizen, even before sustainability became a quasi German word. So for us, it is a kind of, it has been a development of I mean, we've been growing as a company. We've learned to document things better than we did before, because every part of KATEK has been in its own environment, has been in its own society, has been corporate citizen ever since, without really making a documentation of it. So, now you're right. We've been putting all that together. We've been answering the questions of the community, the stakeholders, and we're happy and proud that we could really publish that first sustainability report in a new volume in 4/21 just last week. So this has been out, and we've put all those content on the website and all this. And I mean, for me, to now more precisely answer your question, it is a very essential part of be there not only for today, but have a more thorough plan to do that and be a sustainable part of that future. So, and this is how we try to balance that with strategies and roadmaps for all the aspects of the E, the S and the G.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's managing that whole thing. And I think you make a very good point that, maybe initially when KATEK was formed, obviously that sustainable side of things is almost second nature, particularly in the region in which you operate. And I think it's important to have that as something that you do because you feel it's the right thing, not because it needs to be done and it needs to be reported. But I see a lot of dynamics kind of changing the supply chain and potentially changing the supply chain for the better. So when we look at things like in region for region manufacturing or regionalization or reshoring or whatever people call it, we look at that desire for supply chain security. We look at OEMs thinking maybe we shouldn't be chasing low-cost labor around the world forever because we can't continue to do that. That isn't a sustainable strategy. A lot of those things to me point to shorter supply chains, and shorter supply chains in themselves have the potential to have, a positive environmental impact. Is that something you're noticing within your group and within your customers?
Yes, certainly we do. And because as you mentioned it, we've come out of an era of very stable times. So people optimized and maybe even exaggerated a little bit at that. Also part of our customers were dependent on very long, quite complex supply chains. And I mean, we as KATEK started to, with our offer of being a European electronics partner, I mean, we stand for European partnerships. We do local business, regional business over here. Obviously, I mean, we have also supply chains to manage, and some of those go to Asia, obviously.
Of course.
But still, I see that there is a demand, just as you said, for driving down the complexity, make supply chains more robust, do more local business, and maybe get rid of some exaggerations of the last years, where people kind of over-optimized and over did some of the aspects, and now they're seeing, well, I mean, if things go the hard way, they have to let go of some of their just in time, just in sequence things, and I mean, because this is just not a robust way of doing business. So, but still, and that is kind of the answer to your question. Yes, we see that with our customers, and we are able to answer that need.
Yeah. And do you see specific sectors where demand for regionalization or demand for changes in the supply chain are greater? I've been talking to some companies in the automotive sector, and when they were moving from the internal combustion to EVs, some of them are rethinking their supply chain. Some of them are perhaps applying more focus on partners like KATEK or EMS partners generally, and saying, hey, we can shorten the supply chain here with these guys, and we can manufacture in region for region.
Yeah, I have to admit, this is just based on personal perception there. I don't have any official data, but yes, I certainly see that. And there are industries that have been have had a more regional supply chain ever since, and they have not moved it global so far. Automotive is, for me, is one of the industries that has been in a very very detailed optimization script, so to say, and they've been optimizing all the way, and so this is one of the supply chains that are being rethought right now, and because they I mean, yeah, they are vulnerable. You've seen the impacts in the last weeks, just through the impacts of the Ukraine war. There have been impacts. It's been in the press. Some of the German automotive OEMs had stopped their production for a couple of weeks, just because they had a second source, but the second source was also in Ukraine. So this is kind of the vulnerabilities that they I think notice and reevaluate right now. I mean, it is certainly an industry that has been in a disrupting state as it moves from combustion to other forms of engines.
Yeah, yeah, and I think it's fascinating, and I think there is that change in supply chain. You talked earlier about it being second nature to KATEK to be more sustainable, and we use the term sustainability to mean lots of different things. We talk about environmental sustainability, but also the sustainability of the business. And sometimes you get the impression when you talk to business leaders that they are almost conflicting. Do you think within KATEK they can be harmonized? So the sustainability of KATEK itself as a business, as a leader in manufacturing in Europe, can work in harmony with sustainability and a strong environmental element within your business?
Well, I certainly believe so. I mean, and you're right. Some of the business leaders, they are just in the focus of the capital markets, and more often than not, capital markets want maximized performance, and leaders have to think not only in quarters but in years and longer terms. So. And so that is for me is sustainability. Also, if you want to go for the long perspective, and that is, I think, it's ever and always and ever been a task for management, for industry leaders to do that. And so, yes, I believe so, and I believe this is possible, and maybe it's even a precondition if you want to be successful in the business. Not only for a quarter or a year, you have to do your business sustainable, and you have to answer all those aspects. I mean, if you exploit certain aspects of the environment or colleagues, human resources, that cannot be sustainable. Period.
No.
So I mean, a long-term success is based on a sustainable business. That's what we believe how to do it. And I mean, and what certainly helps is that electronic our business is not it is not a cement factory, or is not a refinery or something. Electronic business is per se not using very much energy. Our energy spending is a zero-digit spending. We're not using so much energy, but still, I mean, we have used this process to put together all the numbers and really make ourselves aware of the footprint that we have in the scopes and actually how we're developing there. We've been in a process as a management team to measure and see how we can improve that. Obviously, if you are a growing company, the absolute numbers rise. That is quite in the nature of the game. But if we put it in a meaningful ratio, and we did that, for instance, with the CO2 per million of revenues, then we see that this is actually moving down, and then we're improving the efficiency there, and we keep on improving that.
Yeah, and I think that's key. I think getting those strategies aligned, makes perfect sense, and it makes sense for you. It makes sense for the customer and all the other stakeholders. Talk to me a little bit about the German Supply Chain Act, what you've seen of it, what you think, and how you think that'll impact both you and the industry.
Well, I mean, in some aspects, that I mean, we see that there is more and more codification of things that we already do. I mean, we have had supplier code of conduct in place, and we've been answering those needs from our customers too. And so basically, what we see is that there is more being codified of things that content-wise we're doing anyway, and so that is, for us, it's fair enough. But we're very cautious in a way that there's so much movement on the European level, on the German level, in terms of additional documentation needs. And yeah, I mean, we're just being cautious to stay ahead of that game.
Yeah.
But so far, yeah, I'm quite happy to say that this is. I don't see content-wise. I don't see any bottlenecks there.
Yeah, I know you're positive about it in terms of it puts a bit more pressure on competitors to do the right thing and bring their business, you know, people that you're competing with should be meeting the same sustainability standards. Does it encourage you that will happen in the future?
Yeah, I mean, this is happening on maybe on many levels. This is encouraging competitors to do the right thing, and so in a way that levels the playing field in a positive way. And also, I mean, you've been commenting before on the maybe conflicting target systems or objectives of the capital market and the sustainability. And for us, I think that it's a good thing that the entire community is thinking and focusing on ESG also. So, I mean, this is for me, and on a structural point, it's been an innovation that even the capital markets are focusing on ESG aspects, which is good. That is something you maybe have not seen 5 years ago, or even 10 years ago, when this was really a conflict, and being the good guy could cost you money. Today, I would say being the good guy is a good thing also from an economical standpoint. So things get together where they belong. So that's good for us.
Yeah, and that's good news. I think that's good news for everybody, and we see it everywhere. We see it with you know, even with venture capital companies are looking at the ESG side of every business they invest in. And when you look at the ESG side for a company like KATEK, it's not just in the way you operate your business, it's involved in the way you manufacture your customers' products, where those products go. It's, you know, it's an end-to-end strategy. Team KATEK, you've got a pretty broad and growing and substantial team. How do you look at the whole element of taking care of those people, thinking about things like diversity, thinking about opportunities for people with different backgrounds? How do you make sure you take care of that side of the business as well?
It is first of all some facts here that I found very inspiring to learn, because some of the things I had a certain gut feeling, and we had beliefs, and now we have the numbers also to that. We are, if you talk about gender, we are almost at a par situation. I think it's 53-47. I think as an organization, we are quite balanced there. Obviously, and I'm happy to talk that a little further. We have to work on getting more female colleagues into leadership positions. That is something that Rainer and myself are thinking about. Diversity, there's a new number, and I really like that. It's 52 countries that are represented in the KATEK in the team blue. So we have many nations. Some of them you see by the passport, some of them you don't see because they have a German passport and they have some other background. But yeah, it is a very colorful team, and we really like that. There always have been some in Mauerstetten, the site that you're going to visit in a few weeks. There is a tradition of a summer festival where everyone brings food, and you have kind of the festival of different countries. So that is good. But still, and you're right, we have to move the right direction. Obviously, I'm a white man, and I mean, if you look at the supervisory board, if you look at the management board, that is a white male. And but Rainer and myself, we really believe that there is a diverse team is a superiority of diverse teams. I think it's going to be a more balanced outcome in the end.
Yeah.
And so what we're doing, we today in our senior management team, we have a 10% share of women. I think KATEK overall is leadership positions 15%, 15 to 85 female leadership, and yeah, we want to bring that forward, and so we put up some objectives also formally to really rise that number, and then bring that in the SMT to 15% next year.
Yeah.
And and it's a starting point.
Yeah, and it's really fascinating, isn't it, when you look at it? I've been doing some work with the organization Women in Electronics, and it just makes sense when you look at the consumers that your products are being sold to. It's a global, diverse community, and it makes sense that the people designing those, particularly when they're designing features on them, are from an equally diverse background. And it's just a very, very practical thing to be doing, but it's something you have to put strategy and you have to put tactics behind, because you do need to have a positive approach to make sure you can build that diversity into the team.
Yeah, it doesn't happen by itself. That's right. And I mean, that's also, I mean, we've talked about the traditional Mittelstand heritage, and that, I mean, is German Mittelstand has been male dominated.
Yeah.
Ever since, and so it is important to really drive a culture where we, as a KATEK, bring in, it's a generation change. Yeah. And since we're doing that, I think there's a new generation coming in that is not as much thinking about gender. It is just for me. I mean, I'm born in '76, and I've been coming into the business at a later stage, as many others. And for me, the jobs that I've been doing in my professional past have always been a very content-based, not gender-orientated. Because an argument is a good argument, and not to look at who's bringing it and whether. So I mean, we really hope that we bring that for me, as I see it personally, a generation change, and also into the leadership. And so,
and I think that's equally important, isn't it? It's bringing that next generation on, and that generation that has influence and change, and those younger people see a lot of these ESG things, as fundamentally core when they're choosing a company. Yeah, but when they're choosing a company to work for, so they'll look at KATEK and say, hey, this is a very grey, male and stale business. We need to that needs to change. Or they'll look at another business in that in the same way, they want to work for a company that's doing the right thing. They want to work for a company that's diverse, that's taking care of the planet and its environment. So even just from an HR point of view, it's it's essential to have that in there, and bottom line is it's the right thing to do. So it absolutely makes sense. So just to wrap up, Johannes, as we go forward, as we look at all these different elements, when you project KATEK forward 2 or 3 years, what do you see as the big changes? How do you see yourself as being differentiated on the ESG side, on the kind of holistic side of the business from the others in the marketplace?
Well, I mean, if I really look at that set of competitors, I think they're always in our discussion. There are always certain groups. I mean, the biggest European player is Sonar. They are doing a great job as far as I can tell, but some of the aspects you will never discuss with them probably. They're not public, and I mean, they're also in ESG terms, they're doing a good job, and you can discuss whatever they publish on a voluntary level. But there's, I mean, we know each other, and we kind of see each other. But I mean, we are public, and there's going to be always more information, more transparency, probably from our side. So that's the one perspective. The others, I mean, obviously there are many smaller companies, and we've been always telling about that. It's a very atomistic market, and we're going to continue to do our strategy of consolidation. Maybe, I mean, it is bringing more companies to Team Blue. Do value accretive transactions, and just today in the morning we announced that we are going to acquire 100% of Sigma Point, a Canadian player. Very interesting team, a very good team, very sustainable team, so to see, very grown in their community. So how do I see that? I think that gives us a much more, as we continue to grow and continue to roll up and consolidate that market. I think we have a more stable business. We have a more stable business. We have in both quantitative and qualitative terms, and we have the ability to scale up with our partners, with our customers, and it is also a more diverse team in Team Blue. So how do I see that? I think probably, I'm not saying we're the only ones moving in that direction, but I think we are quite a good mix of we're fast growing, and we're transparent about what we do, and transparent about where we want to improve. So, and I think, I hope, and from what I understand from what colleagues tell me, the feedback that we get from customers to that is quite good too.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. I think the openness is certainly something that, as someone who watches the industry constantly, sees as a characteristic of KATEK, of Team Blue. So I think it's really good to have that. It's really refreshing that you do have that, and I think refreshing is also another element that people see of KATEK. You know, something that's dynamic, something that's new, something that's aggressively ambitious, but also, you know, also wants to achieve those ambitions in the right way. So I think that's
thank you.
That's hugely valuable. I'm sure that's what you were, the impression that you're looking to create. But I certainly feel that that's the impression we see when we're talking to people out in the marketplace as well.
Yeah, so, but this is an impression. Obviously, I'm grateful for this feedback, and obviously that is something that we like to also to bring across. But at the same time, that is something it is just how we are. And I don't even think you could fake that. It is something that we are as a management team, something we want to achieve. We have a group of people that really has fun driving change and getting things accomplished. And that is, it is a very inspiring setup, really. And the way one of the reasons I really like to come to work every day.
Yeah, well, and also I think that because you are disruptive, you are dynamic, you are kind of shaking things up in the industry, the timing couldn't be better. You know, the fact that the industry is disrupted in itself, the OEMs are relooking at those relationships. It's a very interesting time in the industry, and being a pivotal player at that time, makes it exciting to come to work every day. So yeah, very well done. Well, Johannes, it's great to talk to you. Thanks so much for your time. I think we've covered a lot today. And yeah, let's talk again soon. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.